In 1238, during the Mongol invasion of Kievan Rus, the Mongols attacked and set fire to the city of Vladimir, which was a significant cultural and political center in Russia at the time. This event marked a pivotal moment in the Mongol conquests, leading to the eventual domination of the region. On February 8, 1250, during the Seventh Crusade, Crusader forces led by King Louis IX of France engaged Ayyubid forces in the Battle of Al-Mansura in Egypt. The battle was intense and resulted in significant losses on both sides, ultimately leading to the capture of King Louis IX and a setback for the Crusaders. The Byzantine Civil War of 1341 to 1347 concluded on this day with a power-sharing agreement between John VI Kantakozenos and John V Palaiologos. This agreement aimed to restore stability to the Byzantine Empire after years of internal conflict. Mary, Queen of Scots, was executed on February 8, 1587, at Fotheringhay Castle in England. She was implicated in the Babington Plot, a conspiracy to assassinate her cousin, Queen Elizabeth I. Her execution had significant political and religious implications, intensifying tensions between Catholic and Protestant factions in Europe. On this day in 1693, the College of William and Mary in Williamsburg, Virginia, received its charter from King William III and Queen Mary II. It became the second oldest institution of higher education in the American colonies, playing a crucial role in the education of future American leaders. During the Napoleonic Wars, on February 8, 1807, Napoleon Bonaparte's forces engaged Russian and Prussian troops in the Battle of Eylau in East Prussia. The battle was indecisive but notable for its brutal winter conditions and high casualties, reflecting the intense nature of the conflicts during this period. On this day in 1817, an army led by General José de San Martín, including forces under Grand Marshal Las Heras, completed a significant crossing of the Andes Mountains. This strategic maneuver was pivotal in the campaign to liberate Chile from Spanish colonial rule, showcasing remarkable military logistics and endurance. Richard Mentor Johnson became the first and only Vice President of the United States, chosen by the Senate on February 8, 1837. This occurred because no candidate secured a majority in the Electoral College, leading the decision to be made under the provisions of the 12th Amendment. On this day in 1865, the state of Delaware refused to ratify the 13th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, which sought to abolish slavery. Despite this refusal, the amendment was ratified nationally on December 6, 1865. Delaware eventually ratified the amendment on February 12, 1901. Sanford Fleming first proposed the adoption of Universal Standard Time on February 8, 1879, at a meeting of the Royal Canadian Institute. His proposal laid the groundwork for the global time zone system used today, revolutionizing timekeeping and international coordination. On this day in 1885, the first group of Japanese immigrants arrived in Hawaii. This marked the beginning of significant Japanese migration to the islands, influencing Hawaii's cultural and demographic landscape. The Dawes Act was enacted on February 8, 1887, authorizing the U.S. President to divide Native American tribal land into individual allotments. This policy aimed to assimilate Native Americans into American society, but resulted in significant loss of tribal land and cultural disruption. On February 8, 1904, Japan initiated a surprise naval attack against Russian-controlled Port Arthur, now Lushankou, China, marking the beginning of the Russo-Japanese War. This conflict arose from rival imperial ambitions in Manchuria and Korea, and the successful Japanese assault challenged the perception of Western dominance in military power. In 1904, the Royal Netherlands East Indies Army, led by General G.C.E. van Dalen, launched a military campaign in the northern Sumatra region of the Dutch East Indies. The operation aimed to suppress local resistance but resulted in the deaths of thousands of civilians, highlighting the brutal methods employed during colonial expansions. On February 8, 1910, the Boy Scouts of America, BSA, was incorporated by Chicago publisher William D. Boyce. Inspired by the Scouting movement in England, the BSA aimed to promote outdoor skills, citizenship, and personal development among young boys in the United States. D.W. Griffith's silent film, The Birth of a Nation, premiered in Los Angeles on this day in 1915. Despite being a landmark in cinematic techniques, the film was highly controversial for its racist portrayal of African Americans and its glorification of the Ku Klux Klan, leading to widespread protests and debates about its impact on society. On February 8, 1924, Ji Zhan, a Chinese immigrant convicted of murder, became the first person in the United States to be executed by lethal gas. The execution took place at the Nevada State Prison in Carson City, introducing a new method of capital punishment intended to be more humane than previous practices. During the Spanish Civil War, on this day in 1937, Republican forces established the Interprovincial Council of Santander, Palencia, and Burgos in the region of Cantabria. This administrative body aimed to coordinate efforts against nationalist forces, reflecting the complex political landscape of the war. On February 8, 1942, Japanese forces launched an invasion of Singapore, a strategic British stronghold in Southeast Asia. The subsequent battle led to the surrender of British forces on February 15, marking a significant defeat for the Allies and showcasing Japan's military prowess during World War II. British and Canadian forces initiated Operation Veritable on this day in 1945, aiming to clear German forces from the area between the Maas and Rhine rivers. The operation was part of a broader Allied strategy to advance into Germany's industrial heartland and hasten the end of the war in Europe. Soviet prisoner of war Mikhail Devutayev, along with 9 other POWs, escaped from a Nazi concentration camp in Peenemünde, Usedom, on February 8, 1945. They seized a German aircraft and flew to freedom, providing valuable intelligence about Germany's V-2 rocket program upon their return. Following the dissolution of the People's Republic of Korea in the north, the communist-controlled Provisional People's Committee of North Korea was established on this day in 1946. This move laid the groundwork for the future Democratic People's Republic of Korea, under the leadership of Kim Il-sung. On February 8, 1950, East Germany established the Ministry for State Security, commonly known as the Stasi. The secret police agency became notorious for its extensive surveillance and suppression of dissent, playing a central role in maintaining the Socialist Unity Party's control until the fall of the Berlin Wall. On February 8, 1960, Queen Elizabeth II issued an order in council declaring that her descendants, who are not styled as princes or princesses, would carry the surname Mountbatten-Windsor. This decision combined the royal house of Windsor with Prince Philip's surname, Mountbatten, reflecting both family lineages. Construction of the Hollywood Walk of Fame began on this day in 1960. Conceived in 1953, the Walk of Fame was created to honor notable figures in the entertainment industry. Today, it features over 2,600 stars along Hollywood Boulevard and Vine Street in Los Angeles, serving as a major tourist attraction. On February 8, 1962, French police, under the command of Paris Prefect Maurice Papon, clashed with protesters at the Charonne metro station in Paris. The demonstrators were opposing the Algerian War and the far-right organization de l'Armée Secrète, OSE. The confrontation resulted in the deaths of 9 protesters, leading to widespread public outrage and significant political repercussions in France. During the American Civil Rights Movement on February 8, 1968, a tragic event known as the Orangeburg Massacre occurred in Orangeburg, South Carolina. State police opened fire on African American students from South Carolina State College who were protesting racial segregation at a local bowling alley. The attack left 3 students dead and 28 injured, highlighting the intense racial tensions of the era. On this day in 1971, the NASDAQ stock market index opened for the first time. As the world's first electronic stock exchange, NASDAQ introduced a computerized system for trading securities, revolutionizing financial markets and paving the way for the modern era of electronic trading. Also, on February 8, 1971, South Vietnamese ground forces, supported by the United States, launched an incursion into Laos. The operation aimed to disrupt the Ho Chi Minh Trail, a critical supply route used by North Vietnamese forces during the Vietnam War. Despite initial successes, the mission faced strong resistance, leading to significant casualties and raising questions about the effectiveness of such cross-border operations. The crew of Skylab 4, the final manned mission to the American space station Skylab, safely returned to Earth on February 8, 1974, after spending 84 days in space. The mission set a record for the longest human spaceflight at the time and provided valuable scientific data on the effects of long-duration space missions on the human body. On this day in 1983, Melbourne, Australia experienced a severe dust storm, one of the worst in its history. The storm was a result of prolonged drought conditions and strong winds, which lifted topsoil from the surrounding farmlands and blanketed the city, causing significant disruptions and highlighting the environmental challenges faced by the region. On February 8, 1983, Shergar, a celebrated Irish racehorse and 1981 Derby winner, was stolen from the Ballymaney stud in County Kildare, Ireland. The kidnappers demanded a substantial ransom, but negotiations failed, and Shergar was never recovered. It is widely believed that the Provisional Irish Republican Army, PIRA, was behind the theft, although no one was ever charged, and the incident remains one of the most famous mysteries in horse racing history.